Have you ever heard of a time when it rained so much, for so long, that an entire continent was brought to its knees? I'm not talking about a movie plot. This really happened in Europe, at the tail end of what we call the High Middle Ages. It's a story of climate change, widespread hunger, and societal breakdown that sounds eerily familiar today. This is the story of the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317. Picture this, it's the early 14th century. Europe is booming. The population has exploded, cities are growing, and huge cathedrals are reaching for the heavens. Life wasn't easy, of course, but things were looking up. For centuries, Europe had been enjoying a warm and stable climate, known as the medieval warm period. This meant longer growing seasons, reliable harvests, and plenty of food to go around. People were healthier, lived longer, and had more children. It felt like the good times would last forever, but they didn't. Unseen by the people on the ground, the climate was shifting. The North Atlantic Oscillation, a major weather pattern, was changing course. This marked the beginning of a centuries-long cold spell we now call the Little Ice Age, and the first catastrophic sign of this change arrived in the spring of 1315. It started to rain. And it didn't stop. All across northern Europe, from Ireland to Poland, the skies opened up. It rained through the spring, all through the summer, and into the autumn. Fields turned into muddy swamps, seeds rotted in the ground before they could sprout. The crops that did manage to grow were stunted and meager. The grain harvest was a disaster. Imagine being a farmer back then. Your entire year's work, your family's survival, all washed away by endless rain. There was no surplus from the previous year. The population was so large that every harvest was consumed almost immediately. Panic set in. The price of grain skyrocketed. A simple loaf of bread, once affordable, became a luxury that few could manage. People first turned to their stored food, but that quickly ran out. Then, they ate the seeds they had saved for the next planting season, a desperate act that mortgaged their future for a few more days of survival. Kings and lords tried to intervene. Edward II of England, for instance, tried to cap the price of food. But it was useless. When there's no food to buy, price controls mean nothing. Merchants simply refused to sell at a loss, and the black market flourished. As 1315 turned into 1316, things went from bad to worse. The rain continued. The spring planting failed again. Now, real starvation began to bite. People ate whatever they could find: roots, grasses, tree bark, and acorns. They slaughtered their draft animals, the very oxen and horses they needed to plow their fields, just to have something to eat. The streets of towns and cities were filled with the destitute and the dying. Chronicles from the time describe scenes of unbelievable horror. Desperate people scavenging for scraps in garbage heaps, their bodies skeletal and their eyes hollow. Disease followed hunger, as it always does. Weakened by malnutrition, people's immune systems collapsed. Typhoid, dysentery, and pneumonia swept through the population. The death toll was staggering. In some towns, up to 10 or 15% of the population died. The social fabric began to unravel. Crime soared as people stole to feed themselves and their families. The old bonds of community and charity broke down under the immense strain. It was a world turned upside down. There are even dark, whispered accounts of the ultimate taboo: cannibalism. While historians debate how widespread it was, the fact that it was recorded in multiple chronicles shows the sheer desperation of the time. It's a chilling reminder of what happens when society is pushed to the absolute brink. Finally, in the summer of 1317, the weather broke. The rain subsided, and the sun returned. But the crisis was far from over. It took years for agriculture to recover. The population wouldn't return to its pre-famine levels for a long time. The psychological scars ran deep. The confidence and optimism of the High Middle Ages were shattered. People's faith in their institutions, in their kings, their lords, and even the church was shaken. If God could allow such suffering, what did that mean for their world? The Great Famine was a brutal turning point. It marked the end of an era of growth and the beginning of a century of crisis. The societal weakness it exposed set the stage for even greater calamities to come, most notably the Black Death, which would arrive just 3 decades later. The population, still weakened and not fully recovered from the famine, was tragically vulnerable to the plague. So why does this story from 700 years ago matter today? Because it's a powerful lesson in fragility. It shows how quickly a seemingly stable society can be brought to its knees by forces beyond its control, like climate change. The medieval world was pushed past its limits by a population that had outgrown its resources, making it incredibly vulnerable to a shift in the weather. The Great Famine is a stark reminder that our own complex, globalized society is not immune to such shocks. It teaches us about the critical importance of resilience, of sustainable systems, and of the delicate balance between humanity and the environment we depend on. The people of the 14th century couldn't see the climate changing. We can, and the story of their suffering is a warning we should all take to heart. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to explore. See you next time.